All right, so I'm going to respond to a question I had about one of these items behind me and about Chemix Lifestyle, their brand. And I love them. I love the creator, the innovator, the owner of it. He's a chemist, an actual chemist. He's a formulator and researcher, and he does things right for formulations at efficacious doses. And that's one of the companies I love. So I was asked, like, what's my favorite product by them? And I have one that is probably my most used, off and on, not every day, but because I'm a high strung individual, very high stress, I love working out. I love getting that kind of that dopamine dump, that really high intensity training, whether that be high intensity, low volume, or high intensity, high volume, like CrossFit style, or just going all out deadlifts for like max repetitions, or just doing heavy doubles. So it really depends upon person to person, but my cortisol usually runs very high, and too high of cortisol can sometimes be a little damaging, I would say, to your overall health parameters, not just like your kidneys and your liver, but also like your sleep production, hormone production, thyroid production, things like that. So mine typically stays elevated, and this is found through blood tests that we can we can see how our morning cortisol is running. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I'd rather have my cortisol taken throughout the day, especially at night, to see if it's actually elevated, because that's typically whenever it's a little bit more of a problem to have elevated cortisol at night. So first off, cortisol, it is a byproduct from cortisone. It's converted. Cortisol can be good for us, and we don't want to just obliterate it. So cortisol can help us wake up in the morning. It helps us pull blood glucose, or like glycogen, into our bloodstream, help us become awake in the morning. So elevation of cortisol is going to be highest in the morning, and then it'll taper down toward the evening, and that usually happens along with like sundown, right? So unfortunately, that can stay elevated because of our LED lights or stressful lives, to where now, we don't work from sun up till sundown. We work from sun up till like the sun's been down for quite a while. So that can stay elevated. So the cortisol can stay elevated, and it can wreck our sleep. So we might not get really good restful sleep. Our melatonin production might be off, and our cortisol might be high. So, I mean, why is this a big problem? Well, it's because there's a enzyme. It's 11 beta hydroxy dehydrogenase. Geez, talk about tongue twister. So 11 beta hydroxy dehydrogenase. So there's two different ones of them. The first one, which is labeled as 1, that comes from your liver and fat cells, and that's the one that I want to control. There's one that's labeled as 2, and that's coming from your kidneys, and we don't really want to destroy that. So that can cause some issues with aldosterone and kidney function. So you might see elevated levels of GFR and creatinine. So what we really want to do is, I like to use the product. So I'll show you. It is Cortibloc. So Cortibloc is going to be Emodin, and so it's going to be extract from it. It'll be derived from usually like knotwood. So you'll usually see that from the extracts for like giving resveratrol. So the anti-aging is what they call it. But we're going to be extracting the Emodin from that knotwood, and so what it really does, it helps to inhibit the 11 hydroxy steroid dehydrogenase from the fat in the liver. So that first one, that's a little bit more damaging to our metabolism, metabolic orders, and also our physique. And sometimes if it's elevated too high, we can have an increase in fat deposits. And so really what we see from the use of Emodin after a period of like a month, 2 months, is that we're going to see a reduction in fat cells. And so that can be a reduction in the adipose tissue itself. And so There are studies that have been shown that it reduces it from 46%, reduces even glucose levels by down to 77%. So that's just taken for 7 days. So the benefits of it is also, helping your blood glucose levels. And so that's usually because cortisol at an elevated level can pump out more blood glucose and can cause your insulin to be worked quite a bit, and your body's trying to compensate. So usually we also see that happening from lack of sleep. So with the lack of sleep, we have elevated blood glucose. So you'll wake up in the morning, test your blood glucose, might be 100, and you're like, hey, that's terrible. Well, it could be elevated cortisol levels at night. It's just one thing that may cause this, right? So it might happen, and you poor lack of quality sleep. Let me rephrase that. So lack of quality sleep, you wake up, blood glucose levels high. That triggers other responses, hormonal responses, for you to want to indulge on maybe salty or sugary foods because your cortisol level is high. So we want to be able to bring that down. And so sometimes after working out, with a hard workout, your levels are very elevated. And so that's whenever I like to take the Cortibloc. So taking one Cortibloc after working out, taking another Cortibloc before going to bed, like this seems to really help me to bring my cortisol levels down and not be so anxious. So is there fat loss coming from that? Not really for me. I mean, it's probably body maintenance, and that's totally fine because that keeps me happy, and kind of gives me a set point of like where my body fat is at. That's based on nutrition. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. So this is going to be the Chemix lifestyle. So you can always find that in my my link tree, and you can use fit.dad so you can save some money, but all their products are there. But this is the one on Chemix that I use quite often. I'll show you the other ones that I use, but when these are out of stock. So you have 95% of the Emodin, and it's coming from that knotwood. And then they use the BioPerine from the black pepper that typically helps to absorb some compounds. So usually like roots and herbs, the BioPerine seems to really help with the absorption. We see that from in vitro studies and in vivo studies. So the other one that I like is coming from Morphogen. You've seen this before. Morphogen, they have an 80% extract of the Emodin. And again, coming from the same area of knotwood. And then also they use estrogen. So this is another alternative to the BioPerine. Estrogen, again, seems to be able to help with some absorption. I'm not really clear on like, because usually BioPerine helps with like roots. So like knotwood would be a root. Like turmeric, you usually see it in. Ginger, you see it in. So I think the estrogen helps with like the herbal plants itself, like the leaves and stems. Don't quote me on that, but I wouldn't mind both of them in there. So they do have a product absorbed by NutriBio that has both of them. You can take that. On Amazon, I found this one. This one's going to be a very popular brand right now with Derek from More Plates, More Dates, Gorilla Mind. He puts 95% of the Emodin in there as well. And you can take up to 2 capsules. That'll give you the 500 milligrams for the 95%. That's going to be the same as 1 capsule for Chemix. Okay, so you're getting a little bit less from the Morphogen. Now, why do they do this? Well, they do this because sometimes Emodin can cause your body to relax and reduce so much stress that it can cause some gastrointestinal issues. So that would just be like maybe more frequent stools or softer stools or diarrhea. And to me, I mean, it's not a bad thing. It definitely helps move things along. So gut motility pretty much is like going to be an effect of this, which is good though. So sometimes I think people are a little bit too much filled up with crap, and this might help them kind of alleviate that, because sometimes cortisol can be elevated because you haven't had your morning poo. So maybe you would benefit from that. So if you're looking for something to really just help alleviate some of that, the high cortisol, this is a product that I'd recommend. So Emodin, great response. I love it. There hasn't been any like real issue that I've had from it. And I have had my blood tested, and I can show you who I get it through, because I make sure to get blood work done quarterly. And so I get mine done through, if I can just, here we go. Private MD Labs. So that's who I go to, and you can choose between LabCorp or you can choose between Quest. And when you select the cortisol test, you have to have it done between like 7 and 9 or 7 and 10. It really depends on which lab you go to and also which one that you pick. So it's somewhere on here. It's like the private MD Labs is kind of like a what do they call it? Like you get to pick and choose what you want type of style, and you can add whatever you want in here. So you can do hormones and metabolism, and you can, so Addison disease, that's going to be something that would have the adrenal on there, so you can click the more. So let's see, the adrenal system, so cortisol serum. So there you go. So Addison's disease is like very low. It's like when you have really low cortisol, you can usually see that with like color discoloration on skin. If you're very tired and less motivated, you can see some symptoms with that. It also has issues with renal function as well. And because that type of disease affects the other 11 beta sterol hydroxygenase 2, which that's the one that's the kidney function. And that's the one that if we start getting too low, it can be harmful. And so that's where the Addison's disease comes in. And so if you have that, and I would not recommend this at all. So you would definitely need to see, is it actual cortisol that I'm having an issue? Because you can't just say, oh, I'm tired and I'm like a wired tired. So I retain water, my belly's kind of bloated. It's got to be cortisol. It's got to be, or I drink so much caffeine, I'm so tired, I have adrenal fatigue, or what they really call it is adrenal insufficiency, I believe. I don't really believe in that. I mean, there's, you have imbalances, and you have hormonal imbalances and metabolic imbalances. And I believe you're using that very broad spectrum term. So I would rather get a blood test done and really see where your numbers are at before you even try anything that's recommended by myself or by anybody else. It's definitely good to have some blood markers, some data to go by. That's what I always recommend. So quarterly would be great for everyone to get done, biannually, annually, at least minimum, and go from there. But I wouldn't just take this haphazardly unless you are, if you're a really intense workout person and you love like those HIIT style trainings, just CrossFit style trainings, you're a very intense power lifter, strongman, bodybuilder, you do like Dorian Yates or Mike Mentzer style, I would definitely invest into something like this. If you're really having trouble with kind of like losing that last bit of body fat and you're just stuck, because the last thing you want to do is lower calories. And so maybe there might be an issue with your cortisol. And if you are a stim junkie, like a lot of caffeine, if you are a renal junkie, like a dopamine junkie, so you love those high intensity workouts, most likely, I'm not going to be 100%, but most likely you have some cortisol issues. And so this should be something that you would be in your supplement regimen. And this might kind of get rid of that need for you to keep lowering calories. So all in all, that is my most used product by them, just because of how often that I do use it. Usually I take a month on, and then I'll do 2 weeks off or a month off, really depending on how I feel. And I will go no more than 4. So at 4, you definitely get some gut motility, and it's not fun. So 2 is kind of the sweet spot. 2 together at the same time, you do get a little bit of gut motility. So that might be a good way for you to get up in the morning and just get on with your business and set that habit to go and get your body kind of regulated to that. And it might work, but definitely do not wake up and take it. If you wake up, go to the gym, then take it, totally fine. But don't wake up and take it. You want your cortisol to be elevated in the morning, get you up and get you going. That's usually why you would kind of prevent taking some sort of caffeine right whenever you wake up. You want your cortisol naturally to be elevated, and then you can go on and enjoy your caffeine if you like, or it's a fat loss aid, focus aid, whichever you use for your caffeine, pooping aid with coffee. So leaving it there, I'll tell you about some other products if you want to know about Chemix, and we can go into more scientific stuff. I can send you links to Gorilla Chemist, the CEO. He breaks it down on a whiteboard. Leaving it there, like, share, comment, subscribe, and get your blood work checked and go to private MD labs.